Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk to you about the voluntary admission, a part of the Baker Act, really not being voluntary. In fact, it's involuntary. I know that sounds strange, but let me explain. So here in Florida we have the Baker Act, which is not a treatment statute. It is a statute that allows the state of Florida to basically grab your loved one, take custody of them, make them a ward of the state when there's an allegation that there's some type of mental health crisis. Could be they're suicidal, they've attempted suicide, they've attempted self-harm, or maybe just some fictitious allegation that simply isn't supported by evidence, but they got Baker Acted anyway, which is what we see a lot of here in our office. Now, there are two types of Baker Act. Okay, there is the involuntary Baker Act, which is the one that you would associate with a 72-hour detention. There's also the voluntary Baker Act. And that means that, in theory, you could be held indefinitely without a court hearing, without speaking to a lawyer, without any of that stuff. And it's an indefinite detention if you're voluntary. Now, in order to be voluntary, you're supposed to give informed consent. Most of the time, we don't see that in our office. We see people who get coerced or tricked into signing a voluntary admission agreement. And what typically happens is one of two things. Either they went to the hospital, and this happened a lot during COVID, saying, my meds don't work, I need to be assessed, I don't feel well. And the hospital staff said, oh, sign here to be assessed. And what they were really signing was a voluntary admission agreement, which basically resulted in an indefinite detention as a ward of the state. Or they got involuntarily detained, the 72-hour clock started to tick, and at the end of the 72 hours, one of three things is supposed to happen. And again, remember, nobody knows your loved one's there, so we're presuming that this facility is going to follow the law. Oh, and by the way, you can't sue them if they get it wrong anyway. So just the icing on the cake. But your loved one is involuntarily detained. At the end of 72 hours, one of three things is supposed to happen. Number one, they release them. Number two, they file a petition for placement, meaning the facility wants to keep your loved one for somewhere between 0 and 6 months. That's going to trigger a 5-day window, meaning there's going to be a placement hearing within 5 days, which if you're the family member, you may not be invited to, you may not even know when it takes place or if it's even occurred. Or number three, at the end of the 72 hours, they get your loved one to sign what's known as a voluntary admission agreement, meaning you agree to stay. Now, in order for that to be legal, your loved one's supposed to give informed consent. Most of the time, they don't give informed consent because they have no idea what they're signing. A lot of the time, they're told, if you don't sign here, we're going to go see a judge. You'll never get out of here. I mean, they're just lied to. They're threatened. They're coerced. But understand something. Voluntary admission does not mean you're there voluntarily. In fact, it's worse than being involuntary. Because if you're voluntary, that means they can keep you, the state of Florida can keep you for an indefinite period of time. No hearing, no judge, no lawyer, no due process, none of that stuff. And so I typically counsel clients, don't sign a voluntary admission agreement. I know they're threatening your loved one. They're going to get a court order. Well, that's fine. Let them go to court. I'll be happy to see them in front of the judge. No problem. Everybody in my office is a very experienced trial lawyer. I was prosecutor for 5 years. I tried over 200 jury trials, including a capital murder case or several capital murder cases. So I'm not afraid to go to court, and neither is my team. So let them bring you into court. The bigger issue is when your loved one signs a voluntary admission agreement and they're like, oh, I'd like to go home now. And the facility says, sorry, you can't go home. What do you mean? Well, you signed this agreement. You're stuck. So if there's a voluntary admission agreement and it has been signed, if your loved one then says, I'd like to go home, the facility has 24 hours to do one of two things. File that petition for placement. That kicks off the 5-day window, right? Remember, 5 days to have the hearing, or they got to let them go, right? Within 24 hours. So just understand something. Voluntary does not mean voluntary. It really means involuntary. And if you, respectfully, I know folks try to handle these things themselves, but if you try to handle this yourself and give your family member counsel, I'm telling you, it's a recipe for disaster. And if your loved one has health insurance, trust me, the facility has every reason to try and keep your loved one. This is how they make money. And here's the icing on the cake. Nobody knows they're even there, and you can't sue them for this stuff. Even if they fail to get informed consent for your loved one, they are immune. They're an agent of the state's mental health system, And in that Baker Act statute, it specifically says they are immune from being sued for this stuff. Now, obviously, if your loved one gets harmed, I've had people that were beaten up. I had a woman that was sexually assaulted in a facility. That's a different story. They have a duty to keep you safe. But as a general rule, even if they get it wrong and even if they did it intentionally, you're not getting any money for this. So they don't care, which is why in pretty much every video I've ever put out about the Baker Act, I tell folks the time to fight is as soon as your loved one gets detained. Don't wait. Don't try to handle this yourself. I'm telling you, the facilities, they're not afraid of you, but they don't like being dragged in court, especially by my team, because they know we'll fight. Anyway, I wanted to just share that with you. Voluntary is really involuntary. And with that said, I appreciate you tuning in. I would love a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.